Shall we play a little game? Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bree and this is For Pause in a Book. The Goodreads Choice Awards season is honestly the best time of year on BookTube. There is so much content that surrounds the Goodreads Choice Awards and I'm here for it. I'm here to get in on it. You have the vlogs, you have the hot takes, you have the predictions, and that's what we're going to do today. My goal today is to try to figure out what books will be in the Romantasy category of the Goodreads Choice Awards. Now, this is obviously under the assumption that we are going to get a Romantasy category again. This was something that was introduced last year with the surge in popularity of Fourth Wing. And while there's not a Fourth Wing sequel that came out this year or within the allotted time frame for this year's awards, Romantasy has continued to become a trend and a subgenre that people are really diving into. And you can see that with both publishing as well as the content that is being made on BookTube and BookTok. So personally, I don't see it going anywhere. I am like 99% confident that we will get a Romantasy category this year. That's the assumption we're going with, and I have a bunch of books to talk to you about that I think have a chance of being in that top 20. So there's a couple of criteria that is required to be nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and honestly the algorithm is very much a secret, and that's why we really have no idea what will be nominated. There's obviously a lot of pressure from publishing houses and marketing, stuff like that, but also with this surge specifically in BookTok over the last couple of years, that has really kind of put everything on a tailspin. So there's really only two big check boxes that a book has to tick off in order to be eligible to be nominated. First, it needed to be published between November 16th, 2023 and November 12th, 2024. So it's right at a year, but we are looking at the end of 2023 as well as most of 2024 for our publications. The other criteria is that it simply just has to have an average of a 3.5 or higher on Goodreads in order to be eligible. And that's pretty easy to do. There are some authors that obviously have missed the boat in the past, but all of the books that I'm going to be talking about today definitely meet that criteria. So if you are new to the bookish space, the way that Goodreads Choice Awards works is basically 20 books are nominated and that will determine the first round of judging. That goes for about 2 weeks. I don't know exactly what the time frame is going to be this year. Then the top 10 will be whittled down and it'll be another round of voting. And from there we will determine our Goodreads Choice Awards winner. So there are 20 books that will be nominated. I have 32, something like that, on my list today just because I can't decide, okay? I'm just trying to hit all of the marks. Hopefully at least some of these are correct. We'll just say that. So I'm not going to try to rank these in like top 10, top 20 or anything like that. I am going to be discussing these based on how confident I am that they will be on this list, because I have them in 4 categories. So 1, definitely the top 10. 2, maybe the top 10, but definitely the top 20. 3, probably the top 20, however, I don't see them cracking the top 10. And 4, there is a possibility it could be on the list. So I'm going to start out with the one that I think is probably the most obvious, the most clear, the most direct, and will likely be the winner. And that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Crescent City series, and books 1 and 2 won the fantasy category the years that it came out. I think it was 2020 and 2021 or 2022, I can't remember. It's been a few years since we have actually seen a Crescent City book in the running, and you know, Sarah J. Maas is a juggernaut of the fantasy and specifically of the Romantasy category. This, I feel like, is the Fourth Wing of 2024, even though it came out in January or February, and it's also been kind of touted as the worst in the series and a lot of people were disappointed by it. She just has the name recognition. I don't foresee anything taking this top spot. Another one that I definitely think will be in the top 10 is another juggernaut of the Romantasy community. That's going to be Born of Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Again, a staple in the Romantasy community. She has 2 very big Romantasy series and has actually started a 3rd one that was also on the Romantasy category last year. JLA has been all over the Goodreads Choice Awards. Book number 3 in the series that came out last year came in 9th in the Romantasy category, and I think the only reason why it didn't do better than that is because JLA had multiple books nominated, and so I think her fan base kind of split the vote. I don't think that that's going to happen this year, but I definitely think this one will be in the top 10. Another one that kind of came out of nowhere last year, I did not foresee it doing as well as it did, but that is going to be Apprentice to the Villain, which is the sequel to Assistant to the Villain, and this one came in 2nd behind Fourth Wing, and while the gap between 1st and 2nd was pretty large, the gap between 2nd and 3rd was also really massive. This is a cozy romantasy, definitely more erring like less on the side of romance, more on the side of quirkiness. This is one that I actually have not read yet, and I'm worried about it. But this is a sequel. It is about this girl who becomes an assistant to this like big bad villain, this henchman, and then there's a romance somehow. I don't know. It seems like it's going to be quirky. I'm also really confident in this next selection and making the top 10 because it has been all over BookTube and BookTok, and that's When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is a behemoth of a book. It is very chunky, it's very scary, but this book has been so well loved by so many people, and so I definitely see that there's going to be a fan base for it. It's going to come out, it's going to vote in droves, and I don't know where in the top 10 it's going to place, but I definitely see it in the top 10. This next one is definitely going away from the typical romantasy that we are seeing become such a trend right now, but this author is so well known in the romance space, and so I definitely foresee her entering the romantasy space too, and that's going to be Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I hate this book so much. I hope personally it doesn't make it, but I know it will, as long as it doesn't win. As long as it doesn't win. This is like a vampire werewolf romance. It reads like fan fiction. Listen, a lot of people love it. A lot of people do. It's kind of an intro to an Omegaverse, but it was not my cup of tea, that's for sure. I read it as an ARC back in 2023, but it came out in February of this year. Finally, the last in the group of books I'm confident will be in the top 10, and that is A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. This is a Norse Viking-inspired romantasy, and it definitely made its rounds at the beginning of the year. It's one of the first books outside of Red Tower Publishing that the first editions have these sprayed edges, and so that really helped its popularity, I think. So a lot of people at least shelved it, and that is a metric that Goodreads is going to use. It also was a book of the month selection when it came out, and typically for other genres that is a big contributing factor because book of the month is so widespread and it has such a vast audience outside of the like bookternet, and so in other genres, it has really helped contribute to where a book ranks, and I'm thinking that that will be the case with romantasy as well. There's a few books on here that are romantasy that were book of the month selections, and that's the reason why I have them on this list to begin with, but this is the one that I think I'm the most confident in. Alright, moving into our second category of books that I definitely think will be in the top 20. I just don't know where they will fit in the top 10 or like 10 to 15. The first one is Gold by Raven Kennedy. Now this could also be Gold Finch. Both books came out within the designated time frame, but I feel like they will probably put book 5 in rather than book 6, and only one book per series can be nominated. This one, surprisingly, the previous books in the series were not nominated. However, they would have had to go under fantasy or under romance, and they would have had much stiffer competition with contemporary romances that they were trying to beat, and or Brandon Sanderson epic high fantasy. So I can see why it wasn't nominated previously, but with the introduction of the romantasy category, this is such a popular series, I can't see it not making the list, at least the top 20. Like I said, it is book 5 in a series, but it has a 4.1 rating on Goodreads, but it does have 42,000 ratings, which is fewer than all of the other ones that I have spoken about except for the Born of Blood and Ash, but that one just came out recently, and so that makes sense. But the other ones are like, you know, closing in on 100,000 plus, but at the same time, it's definitely more than some of these other indie options that I'm also adding onto this list in hopes that they will be on there, or that books in that series were on there last year. So I do think that this one does have the potential. However, I'm putting it out here right now. If this book does make the top 10, I will not be reading this series because I'm not going to read 4 books to get to this one. Another one that I think will probably make the top 20, will maybe make the top 10, and then what I will also not be reading if it does make the top 10, and that's Restless Spirits. This is the 9th book in the Zodiac Academy series. I know for a fact I will not like the Zodiac Academy series. This is like a bully romance, and that's not my cup of tea, so there's no reason for me to read all of them. I'm not going to. The 8th book in this series was on the Romantasy category last year and got 5th place, so that's why I'm pretty confident that it is going to make it. So, you know, yay. This next book I am running a little bit of a risk putting it in this category, but that's Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco. Book 1 in this series got 6th in the Romantasy category last year, which is why I was like, oh, this one will probably make it. However, this book actually does not come out until the 29th of October, which means that it has 2 weeks to get readers. And so if you're looking at the number of ratings right now, it has 156 ratings as of recording this. And so I think that's the only reason why it wouldn't make it, but who knows. Another option that was a book of the month that I think could potentially at least make the top 20, might make the top 10, I don't know. Five Broken Blades by Mai Corland. This is like an adventure romantasy? I don't know. It is a book from Red Tower, and we definitely know from last year the marketing push that Red Tower has and the popularity that its books gain. Obviously, this did not get the cult following that Fourth Wing did, but listen, here's the thing. You put the pretty sprayed edges on, people buy the book. People shelve the book on Goodreads. This is the first book in a series, and the second one I think comes out early next year. It has over 20,000 ratings, and its average is a 3.83 right now. Last in this group, and this one might be falling victim to the bias of the internet circles that I run in, but for me, I can't stop hearing about this book. Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This did just get traditionally picked up. I don't think it's going to come out traditionally until after the Goodreads Choice Awards. Books only get picked up traditionally because they were doing so well as a self-published book, and so I think this definitely made its rounds on TikTok, and that's why I think it can make it. I was so shocked by the number of ratings that are on here. It's over 85,000 ratings, which is a massive amount for a self-pub book. And its average rating is a 4.44, so the people that are reading it are loving it, and it's really hard to get that high of a rating when you have that many ratings. So I don't know, I'm pulling for this one, honestly. All right, now let's move into the third category, which is books that I'm pretty sure will at least be in the top 20. Putting them in the top 10 though feels a little generous. The first one is A Touch of Chaos by Scarlett St. Clair. I think this is book 4 in the Hades and Persephone series, and the third book in the series got 11th last year, so it's like right on that edge. It could be in the top 10, but like it definitely was in the top 20. As you get further along into a series, you're going to have your diehard fans, but you're going to have fewer of them. And so that's why I'm not confident putting this in a top 10, especially with the amount of just fantastic new romantasy that we have seen come out this year. Anyways, wanted to give this one a shout out, but I don't see it being in the top 10. All right, as I'm looking at my list, this one I think probably fits more into the number 4 category, but we're gonna leave it here just because. A Promise of Peridot by Kate Golden. Now, book 1 in the series did get 20th in last year's romantasy category, and so like there is that name recognition, and books 2 and 3 both came out within the time frame. However, this one came out in the spring, and so it's had more eyes on it, more readers, and book 3 only just came out within the last couple of weeks, and so it's definitely not going to have as many views as this one has had, as many ratings. So I don't know. I think if it gets nominated, it's definitely not making the top 10, but am I being too generous even putting this in the top 20? Also, another one that I think I'm being a little bit too generous, and that's Feybound by Sarah Al-Arafi. See, as I'm talking through this, I don't even know anymore at this point. This one only has a 3.6 on Goodreads, and so there's a good possibility that it even drops below that 3.5 before the nominees come out. It only has 15,000 ratings, and it came out at the beginning of the year, so that's pretty low, especially for a traditionally published book. But it does have some name recognition to it. Unfortunately, and I'm really sad to say this, Goodreads is very whitewashed, and this being a diverse story from a diverse author, I don't know. I really hope so. Honestly, because I want to read it and I want to have an excuse to read it. I think I'm going to be crossing my fingers for this one. Okay, this book literally just came out this week, so it only has like 100 and something ratings, so I don't want to put too much stock into that because it's a book that we've been waiting on for a really long time and we didn't think we were gonna get. But that's Bloodguard by CC Robson. This is also a book of the month book, and it's got the pretty sprayed editions. It's a Red Tower book. Again, it's gonna have a lot of power behind it, but with it being so new, I don't know. I'm not confident. This is a gladiator romantasy, so gladiators that are fae, I think. I don't know. I'm actually really curious about it. I think I'm gonna love it. It seems very political in nature, and that's usually the good balance that I like to find in my romantasies. I am hopeful for this one. I know it got a lot of buzz, but obviously with it just coming out, it's gonna be really close. Next up, we have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is a new author to the romantasy scene, which is why I'm not super confident. It's not gonna have that name recognition. However, it was a book of the month selection last month. It's definitely getting a lot of hype right now because it's kind of like spooky season romantasy. And so again, maybe that's just like the circles I'm in, and that's why I'm hearing a lot about it, but who knows. It does have 31,000 ratings and a 4.19 average, so pretty good. And it's got a lot of really popular comp titles because it's being comped to Caraval, which was a Goodreads Choice Award winner like I think the whole series was, honestly. And also Carrie Maniscalco, a big name in Romantasy. This is one that I would be really excited to see on the list. I've heard it has really good mental health representation, specifically OCD, not something you see very often in Romantasy stories, and something I tend to look for. Not the OCD specifically, but mental health representation in books. So I'd love to see it get its day in the sun, even though I haven't read it yet. My next guess is A Crown That's Cold and Heavy by Stacia Stark. It could be this book or the fourth book in the series. I can't remember what it's called. This series has very similar names. Anyways, by Stacia Stark. Book 1 was in the Romantasy category last year, but it did get 19th. And so again, it's like on that verge of, will it still be good enough with all of the brand new debuts that are coming out that are so strong? I'm putting a lot of stock in the power that Red Tower Publishing has in terms of marketing, and that's why I have so many on this list. I don't think that all of them will make it, but here's another one. The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This has been comped as like Hunger Games meets Percy Jackson, and like honestly it's been getting pretty good reviews. There was definitely a stint post Fourth Wing where every Red Tower book that came out was just fine at best, and most people are like, it needs an editor, it needed to be shorter, it needed to be more, you know, well defined, whatever. But this one actually has been getting some pretty good reviews, and so maybe it's finally hitting its stride, and with the positive reviews that it's getting, it'll be able to overcome that. I don't know. This one was published kind of in the second half of the year, and so it may not quite have the eyeballs on it. This is all a guessing game at this point. Lastly, in my I'm kind of confident it will be here, we have The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Whitten. I hope this one doesn't make it. I read the first one and I didn't really love it, and I've heard even like less great things about the second book. So I don't know. I could be very wrong. But #1 in the series did get 12th in the Romantasy category last year, and Hannah Whitten is a big name in publishing. So based on name recognition alone, it has a chance. All right, my last grouping is books that like are definitely on my radar. They could sneak into those top 20 spots, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of them were there, but I'm not hedging any bets on it. First up, Fate of the Sun King by Nisha J. Tooley. This is book 3 in the series. Book 2 got 17th in the Romantasy category last year, so it has a viewership. I just don't know if it's gonna continue. I just haven't really heard anything about this third book. I haven't really heard people talking about it. I think a lot of people talked about the first one. The author went to a Polycon last year, and so like at least within like my circle of the internet, people were talking about the beginning of the series, but I have not heard anybody talk about it past that. But it has over 11,000 ratings. It has a 4.03 average, so honestly it has more ratings and higher average than some of the ones that I have put higher than this. Another one that's definitely on my radar is The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. I actually didn't have this one on my list originally, but as I was looking at some of the popular Romantasy titles that came out this year, I realized that this one has over 34,000 ratings, and so obviously someone's talking about it. I think it's one that definitely made its rounds on Book Talk, but it hasn't really gotten the notoriety like in the greater bookternet, I guess. Maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places. Okay, I'm saving space for one more cozy Romantasy. I think Apprentice to the Villain will take the majority of those votes, specifically going into the top 10, but I do foresee at least one more being added to the top 20, and so I have 3 options. I don't know which one though. If I had to guess right now, I would say my most confident one of the 3 would be The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This one has almost 30,000 ratings and a 4.12 average. This one I would say is probably more well known, at least more well loved, definitely more well known than the other 2 options that I have for this like singular space that I'm giving cozy Romantasy. The other one that I always get confused by because the covers are so similar, and I honestly couldn't tell you which one is which premise, but that's The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This one only has about 11,000 ratings and a 3.63 average, so definitely lower. So I can kind of see The Spell Shop edging this one out. But then my third one, which I think is like going to be my wild card, is Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. And the reason why I think this one might be a dark horse is because Rebecca Thorne is very big on TikTok, and so she's going to have her own audience like outside of the general bookternet. But I don't foresee too many cozy fantasies being on the list, so I'm guessing that one of those 3 will make it. Another one that I'm not sure if it will be under Romantasy or fantasy. I don't know if it even gets nominated, honestly. Evocation by S.T. Gibson. I DNF'd this book, so I didn't love it. I love her other works. A Dowry of Blood is one of my favorite books of all time, and it actually got 4th place in the horror category in 2021. So she definitely has some name recognition, but I don't know that there there is as much love for evocation as there has been for her previous books. This one has like a really established relationship, which is why it didn't work for me necessarily, but it does have a really pretty edition, and so people may have at least shelved it, which is why I think it could at least make the top 20. Another Red Tower book, I think this one might be the last one on my list, Heavenbreaker by Sarah Wolf. This one, the reason why I'm less confident in it is I think that this one is more sci-fi than it is fantasy, and so I'm not sure if it'll even like technically fit the definition of romantasy. This one has also been getting some pretty good reviews, but I feel like it's less romance forward from the reviews that I've heard, so who knows, it actually might end up in like the sci-fi category. Nope, I lied. There's one more. The Run in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. This one I think I have recency bias. Like I've been hearing several reviews recently about it that have been pretty positive. This one I believe is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it has that appeal to it, to like the wider mass. It does have over 15,000 ratings, but it only is a 3.78 as of recording this, so like it's very up in the air. One that I don't think will actually make it, but I kind of just want to shout it out and highlight it simply because we do not have enough LGBTQ+ romances on this list. The Crimson Crown by Heather Walter is a sapphic Snow White's evil queen retelling, kind of a villain origin story. She wrote Malice, that was her original duology, and that one actually got 15th in 2021's fantasy category, and so there's, you know, stiffer competition. It's a possibility, but it did just come out. There's not very many ratings. The thing it has going for it is that it was a book of the month selection. And then another one that I want to call out but will likely actually end up in the YA fantasy category is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This has like 128,000 ratings. Depending on like what they decide it is, I'm pretty sure it's marketed as YA, and so I foresee it basically hitting top 10 of the YA fantasy. But in case Goodreads decides to do something crazy and stick it in Romantasy, I'm just gonna mention it here, because this one I think will really throw a wrench into the Romantasy category if it does make it, because I think it would actually hit the top 10. And then we have The Everqueen by LJ Andrews. This is the second book in a series, and again, this is probably just due to the bias of the circles that I run in, but I feel like everyone's talking about this, and it's kind of unique because it's a pirate fantasy, which is not something you see as much. It does have over 27,000 ratings, which is pretty good for a Kindle Unlimited self-pub book. So that's kind of why I'm putting it in as this possibility, but like I said, who knows. Bespelled by Laura Thalassa is the second book following Bewitched, and Bewitched was 15th in the Romantasy category. However, again, I don't think anybody's talking about the sequel. It's a possibility just because it has name recognition. Laura Thalassa is a big name in Romantasy. She has several Romantasy series, so that definitely gives her an edge, but like I said, I don't think anybody's talking about this book. And then I have my final selection, my final guess. I don't know if this one will make it. I've actually never heard of this book before, but as I was searching for the authors that made the top 10 last year, this book came up, and that is Still the Sun by Charlie N. Holmberg. Actually, based on the synopsis, it sounds pretty good, but it only has a little over 4,000 reviews. I've never actually heard of the book before, but her previous book, The Hanging City, got 8th place in 2023's Romantasy category, so obviously there is some name recognition there. They have some corner of the internet that is cheering for them. And that's it. That's my list of books that might be on the Romantasy category. Obviously, there's more than 20 here. I'm like playing it safe and giving you a bunch of options. Goodreads Choice Awards are a popularity contest, and so there's like no rhyme or reason as to what ends up on this list. So if any of them sound good, then like maybe check them out. You got a couple weeks before the first round drops. Let me know down in the comments below if I missed any. Am I on the wrong track with any of them? And if you're not feeling chatty, do a trophy emoji. I am planning on vlogging at least the top 10 of the Romantasy category, and so if you want to see how I did that last year, I'll leave last year's vlog right here. That's all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!